Hello students and welcome to video 2 in chapter 1.3 business objectives. So in the first video we did these three learning objectives here: vision statements and mission statements, objectives, and more on objectives. In this video we're going to cover one learning objective, which is corporate social responsibility, which as we'll see is another objective that firms hold. So let's define the term corporate social responsibility. This is also known as CSR, which is the acronym for corporate social responsibility. So there are various definitions out there. The one I like looks like this. So we're operating a business in a way that takes account of all parts of a society and multiple stakeholder groups. Another way of looking at it is a business that focuses on CSR do not only focus on profit. So if we take like the traditional business going back in time, they focus on profit. Corporate social responsibility now means we're focusing on not just profit, but other parts of society and other stakeholder groups. So here's a diagram summarizing some of the main company stakeholders. So we've got customers, suppliers, environment, shareholders, community, and employees. There's a whole chapter on stakeholders, the next chapter in the syllabus, if you like. And so some examples, if we look at environmental, this might be a business who has a commitment to decreasing carbon emissions in production. So in this situation, it's not just that they don't just have profit as an objective, they're also including the environment as part of their objectives, which is this stakeholder here. If we did ethical objectives, so this would be maybe a country has a minimum wage, but a business promises that they're going to pay over the minimum wage when they're not required to do so. So maybe their main competitors pay minimum wage, but they say we're going to pay 10% above minimum wage. And this would then be taking account of the employees as a stakeholder. Another one might be philanthropic, which is when they donate to non-profit businesses in the local community. So they identify some charities in the local community and they choose to donate money to them. So this might be community as a stakeholder. And then finally, one might be economic. So maybe they're going to provide tuition support to employees. And again, this would be one that targets employees. So CSR basically is saying, but it's not just profit, we're going to care about other things as well. And generally, you'll find that the main ones are environmental and ethical. And some CSR definitions have a focus on ethical and environmental objectives, but there's also these other two ones below. So to give an example, this is Ben & Jerry's. So we looked at the mission statement for Ben & Jerry's in the first video. So Ben & Jerry's, they've actually achieved something that's called a certified B or corporation. What this is, it's a special award given to businesses who prioritize social and economic objectives. They're transparent about it as well. So you have to go through quite a rigorous process to achieve this, but this is kind of like a stamp that says, they're a business that does prioritize CSR. So just a couple of examples that they did. So you can go and have a look at their website. Their website has a large section on, all this CSR things. So they prioritize their farmers. So this would be the suppliers. So the farmers are where they buy their chocolate and their milk from and things like that. And so they're part of fair trade. So fair trade is when they guarantee that suppliers get a fair price for their when they buy from them. But also this other thing called Milk with Dignity, which is a farmer-led standard for better working conditions in the dairy industry. So here they're prioritizing the rights of the suppliers to make sure that they're able to make a profit as well. Another thing they offer is environmental. So they're promising they're going to be 100% renewable energy by 2025. And then 80% less greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So if you go to their website, you can see that there's lots of other things they do. So it's a good example of CSR. On to the next part, which is the triple bottom line. Now, strictly, this is actually not part of the syllabus, but this goes so nicely into this part of the syllabus. So this is something that was coined by John Elkington in 1994, apparently. And basically, the triple bottom line comes from the term bottom line. So bottom line historically means profit. And the reason it's called the bottom line is under the profit and loss, when you get to that chapter, at the bottom is the profit that's remaining after everything's been deducted. But the triple bottom line now focuses on three things. It focuses on profit, and also people and the planet. Another term you might hear is it focuses on economic, social, and the environment. So again, the triple bottom line focuses on profit, which is the economic part here. And this is historically what businesses have focused on for profit. But then also we focus on people, which is the social elements. So people will be employees, suppliers, and other people that involved or other stakeholders within the business that we saw earlier. And then the planet as well, which is a focus on the environment. And basically here, the triple bottom line says a business success now is not just measured by profit, but also its impact on society and the environment. Just to be clear, businesses don't have to do this, but obviously there's a movement towards taking account of different stakeholders. And then you get this Venn diagram here where in the middle, if we focus on all three of them, then we have more of a sustainable future. So this would be a good tool to use for an IA, and it builds really nicely into sustainability, which is one of the concepts that you need in the IA. So some pros and cons of a business using CSR. Now, obviously, this depends on the strategy of the CSR strategy that they're using. So one that focuses on the environment is going to have different pros and cons to economics, to an economic one. But in general, one of the main pros of CSR is it enhances a brand image. So we looked at Ben & Jerry's earlier. They seem to have a very good CSR policy. So that's something that can enhance a brand image, make them seem ethical. And then customers who like to choose ethical companies are more likely to choose those brands. That's the theory. And also it's a way of differentiating from the competitors. So if you have different competitors, customers may end up preferring the one that has more ethical and environmental objectives. Not necessarily, but those customers that do prioritize those are more likely to choose them. For employees who want to work for ethical and environmental companies, it's a way of attracting better talent and then motivating those employees. So if you work for a company which has good ethical objectives, it's something that may be motivating. And also less bad publicity, not necessarily, but if a business in general is very ethical, when they do have bad news, it's possible that they may have less bad publicity because in general, they're trying to make a positive difference. Some cons of corporate social responsibility, well, the increased costs. So we saw earlier that some businesses might donate to charity. So obviously there's a cost there. But also, if a business is trying to reduce greenhouse gases, now it might be possible that it's cheaper to use greenhouse gases. So by reducing your dependence on greenhouse gases, you may end up increasing costs for the business, which leads on to the second one, which may end up lowering profitability. Not necessarily, but there's a good chance that might happen. Thirdly, would be an increased publicity for unethical behavior. So this is if a business is talking about how ethical they are and how wonderful they are. If there are then media reports about the things they do that are unethical, it can seem a bit hypocritical. So a business has to be really, really careful if they are talking about how good they are. And then the final one behind my head is customers may see through it. So these days, businesses are trying to be more ethical because they know that that's what customers want. So consumers may think, well, they're only doing it because they want me to buy from that business, which may not be a bad thing, but customers may see through it. Okay, on to the last slide, and just a clarification. So this diagram, if you've been following the videos, was from 1.2. And the reason I'm showing this is because there's all these terms going around. We've got for-profit, non-for-profit, CSR. We looked at social enterprises in chapter 1.2. So where does CSR fit into this? Well, just to summarize the diagram, on the right-hand side are for-profit companies. So a traditional business focuses just on profit. On the completely opposite side of the spectrum are charities, which are non-for-profit. So they have zero profit objectives and they are just trying to drive social value. In chapter 1.2, we saw something called a social enterprise, which falls in the middle, where they're trying to make a profit. So social enterprises can be for profit. So they still want profit, but now they're focusing on other objectives as well. So they're trying to kind of gain profit and also objectives that help society. So where does CSR fit in? Well, CSR fits in more for these traditional businesses because these traditional businesses are profit-generating entities. But now because society is moving more towards worrying about ethics in the environment, they can use CSR to move more towards the social enterprise. So the social enterprises were set up to achieve social objectives, whereas traditional businesses were set up to achieve profit. But through CSR, these traditional businesses can gain some more of these ethical objectives and move more towards social enterprises. So that's how CSR fits into this diagram. Right, that's all finished. We're now done with chapter 1.3. I'll see you next time.